All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the April 5th School Committee business meeting and Public School Budget Forum. Mrs. Kennedy, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Kennedy, you're muted.
Mayor Holliday,
Present.
Mr. Callahan,
Here.
Mr. Cole, not there yet.
He's about to be here, though. Here he
Mr.
goes.
Hawkeiser,
Here.
Mr. Mannon,
Here.
Ms. Spalding,
Here.
and Mr. Reardon.
Here.
And Mr. Cole is here.
Yes, I'm here,
Okay.
thank you.
Wonderful. We have a quorum.
All right.
Okay, I am going to turn this over to who is going to manage the public comment? You, Mr. Callahan?
I believe public comment's going to be at the regular business meeting agenda. And for the budget forum, we're going to do a Q&A. So the attendees who are here, they can click the Q&A on the bottom of their screen and type in whatever questions they have about the budget. We're going to kind of keep it sort of short to 15 minutes total, and any questions we can't get to, we're going to forward them via the transcript to the superintendent, and he's going to generate an FAQ about all of them.
Sounds great.
So everybody's question will be answered, just maybe not all in verbally tonight.
Okay, so I turn this over to you then, Superintendent Gallagher.
All right. Mr. Callahan, I can share screen, right?
You should be able to. Let me make sure you're allowed. Why don't you try it?
Okay. It says host disabled participant share screen.
Oh, just for you. Hang on. All right, everybody. I'm telling you, they move the security settings on this every time we do it. Okay,
Should be good.
there you go.
All right, let me just minus that out. All right, can you all see that?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you all very much. We're continuing with our budget process. And so I didn't add a lot of new slides. It's really the documents that the school committee has already. So I just, for the public, that as we move through. So preliminary budget development, we began this and we're still focusing on these 4 areas. And really a lot of our initiatives always go back to the strategic plan, but some of the big buckets that we're looking at moving into next school year is obviously the social emotional health as students return, and really just focusing on that and having the students come back into a normal routine. With that, our curriculum instruction and assessment, so we're really beginning to analyze the student growth as we have a lot of internal assessment data already. And I think in being in the hybrid in working throughout the school year, I think we're in pretty good shape with that, but we're going to be able to get really, I think, a lot of data, especially in the next several weeks, in preparation, for summer and preparation for next school year. The other piece, our strategic planning initiatives, 2 big buckets there. There's the college and career pathways, which is tied throughout the strategic plan, the 5-year strategic plan. And then also that world language development is also a couple key areas in our strategic plan. And then our instructional technology and communication, really to enhance the curriculum delivery. and utilizing technology as a tool to enhance our content at every grade level, and then also a real big focus on communication with families, which this slide we've utilized, I think, throughout the budget process.
Oh, shit.
So, yep. Did someone ask a question?
No.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Mrs. Kennedy, you are still, you're actually unmuted, so you might want to mute. It's up to you.
No, I can't see anybody, that's why. So, so this is where we left off. I think, you know, looking at our, the allocations that have increased, you know, through the city and through choice revenue that we'll talk about in a minute. So right now, the funding level, we're still in need of $393,000, give or take, for all of the wants as we were preparing this budget from the February presentation. So as we are looking at the budget process and reductions and reallocating, there was a few different areas that we always look at. So increased revenue throughout the process. And as you can see, the city increased the appropriation by $292,000. We added school choice funding of $200,000. In our school tuition, we had an increase of about $50,000. So when you're looking at the increased revenue, we've increased that over the past few weeks. The other area is that we always look at, it's part of our strategic plan, and coming into the system as a new superintendent, it was really, you know, meeting with school committee and city officials, and also in the strategic plan is really reallocating and maximizing our staffing patterns, and then also the funding within the operational budget. Basically, really looking to get our programming really a kind of like the bang for your buck. And that's something that I think we constantly look at on how we can do business better, and at the same time being fiscally responsible with that. The other area is what we've done in the past that is a priority list. So all of the wants from the preliminary budget is still on the radar. So, you know, as we continue with our budget process, we'll have a tiered list or priority listing. So nothing that is ever lost is taking off, but we obviously want to work to balance a budget in the next few weeks. And then the other piece is utilizing grant funding and the ESSER grant too. And then also we have the COVID funding that we received to utilize that as much as we can. So as we look at the increased revenue, as I said, that's one area that we've increased over the last few weeks. The other piece is the priority listing. Right now, we just had two that we added to the priority, the Spanish teachers, the 2 Spanish teachers in grade 6, and then our literacy coordinator grade 6 to 12. We did a lot of work over the past few weeks with restructuring and reallocating staffing. So in the preliminary budget, we were looking at these increases of instructional aides at the Bresnahan and also at the middle school. But by restructuring in our own personnel, and Nancy Koch working with the principals, kind of reallocating those programs. So those IAs, additional IAs were not needed. And then savings in other areas for the other 2 positions we talked about for payroll, and then the digital learning communications director. The other piece is utilizing the grant in ESSER 2. We're utilizing right now $50,000 for the behavioral specialist. And then the other salary is in the LEA, our operational budget. So we got some savings there. And then part of ESSER 2 is supplies and materials. So we could get some savings in our supplies and materials at each building at this time, and then would be able to utilize some ESSER 2 grant funding for that. So these are right now still on the list for the primary budgetary increase here. So it's still the grade 3 teacher. We're looking at those numbers, a tech integrator right now at the Bresnahan, Mullen interventionist. That's also the ESSER grant, and the math instructional coach is the ESSER grant. Our language-based teacher, you can just see our instructional assistants. So the language-based teacher, this is programming development in our special education programming. Increase SLP from a 0.7 to a 1.0. An increased reading teacher, which is also going to be as part of the special education programming at the middle school. College and career counselor, an increase in reading also falling under special education at the high school, and then a 0.2 math teacher also at the high school. For the district, outside placement, out of district placement coordinator, along with that grade 8 caseload. That will, I think, help us with monitoring the outside placement, and then also the caseload to give parents and families more one-to-one attention throughout the school year. And then the behavioral health specialist, as we said, half of the funding would be through the ESSER grant, and then the other half is the LEA, the operational budget.
Excuse me, Sean, can I
Yep.
interrupt you for 1 minute and ask
Sure.
that you please spell out the acronyms for those that are listening who may not know what they are? Like SLP and ESSER.
Yeah, so the ESSER grant, Nancy, what's the whole title for that? It's the emergency relief. Do you have that, Nance?
I knew you were going to ask that.
I asked you
remember
right before we went on until you rattled it right off.
I know, now I can't remember it.
I can Google it, Nancy, if you want.
Yeah, would you?
I know the ER is emergency relief. So. And then the SLP,
Elementary and secondary school.
there you go. What was
Emergency
it?
Elementary and secondary school.
Emergency relief.
Emergency relief, right.
Correct, there you go. Elementary, secondary school, emergency release.
Thank you,
SLP.
David.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkeiser.
Yeah.
That's teamwork at its best. And then speech and language is the increasing that salary and position to a full-time with the anticipation of the needs through special education. Okay. So at this time, there's some pieces that we're still awaiting. So we continue with the budget work. So right now we're looking at around $393,000 shortfall in the sense of all of the asks that we had in the preliminary budget. So ESSER 3 grant, we talked about this just before in our education committee meeting. So the ESSER 3, they're anticipating as much, if not more, than ESSER 2, and the ESSER 2 is around $950,000, so around $1 million for ESSER 3. So we're waiting for the finalized funding
million.
formula. And the other piece is the criteria of the use of the funds. So with all of the grants that are coming in, there's specific line items or specific areas you can use it for. ESSER 2 was very specific in the different areas. From what we're hearing, ESSER 3, there might be an ability to expand the use of that funding, but we're still waiting for the DESE to give us the criteria on that funding. The other piece we always do is we continue to reallocate and maximize the existing funds, which is strategic, part of the strategic planning 3. But I think that that's one thing, from central office, to the building principals, to the administrators, even working with the teacher leaders on how we can do business better and at the same time maximize the funding that we already have. So we look at a lot of different things: staffing patterns, program allocations, building supplies, materials, technology, all of those different aspects as we're reallocating and maximizing existing funds. And then the other piece that's really important is for us to go back and start to prioritize or list the additional staff and requests. So then we have that, because our ultimate goal for the 26th, and we're waiting, Nancy and I are hopeful that we'll have some more information on ESSER 3 grant by the end of this month. So I think our next budget hearing is going to be on April 27th. But in the meantime, we want to present a balanced budget with all of those different line items that we've been talking about since February within that. So everyone can see, how we did the process and kind of where we're at. So this is just really just a quick overview of the budget documents that you received. I also want to congratulate our new club in the Knockmolin. It's the Girls Who Code Club. So they're all excited, and that's also part of our STEM process and making STEM more accessible to all students, starting at a very, very young age and throughout. So that's all I have. That's my quick overview. You have all the budget documents, so I didn't want to really, go through everything that you already have. So that's it.
Excellent. Thanks, Superintendent. I think what I'm going to do is ask the attendees there, if you do have a question for this, to type into the Q&A box. And while you guys are doing that, if the school committee members have questions for the superintendent or Nancy, whoever wants to go may go first, and we'll see if the attendees actually send us anything.
I got a quick question, I guess, to start us off.
Okay.
Can I go ahead?
Go ahead.
Superintendent, so you mentioned a grade 3. I know we didn't look at enrollment numbers. So are we down a teacher in grade 3, and then the numbers from grade 2 that are going to move up warrant adding a grade 3 teacher? And do we have enough grade 2 teachers that would still be there to meet the needs of the first graders that are moving up?
Yes. So we're looking at those numbers, but you're down one staff member in grade 3 at this time. So that's one of those areas that we may move to a priority list, because they're right on the bubble of, class sizes from, a 22 to 23 to a 19. So that's why we have that in there. But yes, they're down one staff in grade 3.
All right, Sean.
Yep, thanks.
Yep. Bruce Menon, you are muted, sir.
You, Sean, I just wanted to, just to clarify, you and Nancy can respond to this. What is the status of the additional Spanish teachers right now in terms of your budget that you have promulgated, this draft?
So this draft right now, we had the Spanish teachers as a priority 1. So they're not in that overall budget right now. They're still on the budget, but we didn't add those numbers in. And we had some school committee members that wanted us to put the two Spanish teachers grade 6 into the budget and what that would look like. That's why you kind of got like 2 little packets there. But right now they're in that priority 1 list.
All right, Ms. Spalding.
Hi, Sean, I noticed that the library salaries line is cut in half, and I'm wondering, have we cut back on staffing in our libraries?
On the line item, which one?
Which school?
It's the Mullen, and it goes from 40, I'll pull it back up. It's on page 11. It
Mhm.
goes from 42 to 25.
Right?
It was 42 in FY '20,
Right.
and
Okay.
now they share that position with the middle school for the last 2 years. So it's a 0.5 at the Mullen and 0.5 at the middle. So we still have a full-time librarian.
Okay,
Correct. And then also on some of those line item savings is through retirement. So it may not necessarily be a cut. It may just be if a teacher retired at a high step and we hired at a lower step, you'll have a savings there.
okay, thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions for the superintendent? You know what? I don't see the mayor anymore. Video's off. There you are. Mayor, do you have any questions?
Sean and I have had several conversations about the budget, and I'm comfortable where they are. Certainly looking forward to getting additional information from the state regarding what's going to happen with House Ways and Means and the budget that they're putting forward. As always, we hope that there'll be additional Chapter 70 funding, and that obviously will be allocated back to the schools, but unfortunately their timing sometimes is off according to our budget process. But I know the Mass Municipal Association is asking for minimum funded school districts, which is what Newburyport is, that instead of giving us $30 increase per student, that they would raise that to 100, which would certainly be, excuse me, very helpful to us. We anticipate mid-May, the stimulus funding dropping to the city, and there's 2 meetings set up over the next couple weeks with mayors and the state and the feds to talk about how we can actually utilize the $8 billion coming into the state. So I'm hoping there'll be more allocation to the schools. As Sean mentioned, we don't know about ESSER 3 yet in terms of those funds, but I caution that any of the stimulus funding which will go away, and the same with the money coming to the city as well as to the schools, is that I think Sean and Nancy have done a really good job in terms of identifying places where extra support and helps they anticipate will be needed for the students. Summer school, interventionists, adjustment counselors, the behavioral specialists that you saw in the latest revision. These are all positions that can be funded with ESSER 3 for a 2-year basis until we get a better handle on where our students are at this point, following what's the pandemic and what they're calling the pandemic slide. But I ask us all to be cautious in terms of putting too much funding into positions that are considered temporary, because then ultimately you have to fund these positions going forward. But at this point, I'm very pleased with the leadership team and Sean and Nancy for the budget they have put forward, which really, I think, addresses the needs of the school district and providing the additional supports that I think they've done a great job identifying as we go forward. So thank you, Sean.
All right, thank you, Superintendent. The only thing I have to say is, great job. We already went over it. The one thing I agree with the mayor about the ESSER stuff, and that money, we know it's going to be gone someday, right? Soon, basically. The only thing is the Spanish. I wish it were in there if that means the city allocation goes up by 130 grand or however it works, because since I came on the school committee, we always bring up 2007 and the cuts in language and how awful it was and all those things. And if we have an opportunity to bring it now instead of shunting it to the next year, I think we should do it, because we don't know what's going to happen next year. You'd have 20 families move into the district and need another 3rd grade. And you're certainly going to get another, elementary school teacher than a foreign language to be taught. That is my main comment about the thing. But in general, I am very happy with it. Thank you. Any other hands raised there? Dave, Steve? No?
I could say the same thing that I've said multiple times now about process, that I'd almost feel bad saying too much now about, my budget priorities or my thoughts on the budget, because we're so far into the process. And I really think for this fall, last spring, we had set up a goal to have preliminary community discussions in the fall about what the community and what the school committee might want to see district leadership looking into adding to a budget, so that we don't have to look at what's the end result of a lot of work that's gone into this and say yes or no. So, it feels, if we're this whole conversation feels sort of after the thought, but I really implore us to sometime in November have community forums so we could hear from people concerning what they want before you guys spend months building a budget.
I think, Dave, when we go, fairly soon, May or early June, to vote on our school committee calendar, that we think about putting this event earlier in the autumn instead of waiting until late spring. And then you'll have it before the teams go and do all the work. You'll have at least something that's official from the community and us in theory. But we can talk about that at that meeting when we're doing that calendar, if that's all right.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I think everything in there looks good, and I appreciate the clarity with which you put everything together and the way you're trying to consolidate programs and all the work your team's done. I'm just saying it doesn't feel like there was much, if any, opportunity for community or school committee input on, what we've been calling aspirations or goals or ideals or anything of that sort, because we're now talking about this after it's all been put together.
All right, thanks, Dave. Bruce?
Yeah, I certainly have always advocated for as big a process and as inclusive a process as we can possibly have. One of the things that impresses me about this budget is that it does reflect conversations we've been having since last spring about the need to really put a focus on the social and emotional learning and health of students as we reopen things. So while we may not have had some very specific conversations, I do have a level of comfort that this budget does reflect what we knew we were going to need to do as we sort of hopefully came out of the pandemic. So I certainly agree that we need to continue to look at this process. We've been looking at it for 20 years to make it better, but I do have a level of comfort that what we knew we were going to need to do, this budget is a good step in that direction. And we knew that at the beginning of the pandemic, when school was closed down, that we were going to have to deal with a lot of things when we reopened, and this budget begins to look at some of those.
All right, thank you.
Can I ask one more question, Sean? Along those lines, the principals had said something about the PBIS world. Is that what the software is called? They're looking at tracking different types of behavior and instances and the timing of the day and that sort of stuff that comes at some point. Is there a possibility that we get a presentation on the data that makes principals feel that that's an arena where we need to invest? And then again, to follow it up next year to see like what sort of data has been captured. Can we just hear about that at some point?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, it seems that none of the attendees have posted any questions, so I guess the Q&A is over. Attendees, if you do have any questions, you can feel free to send them to us to the sc@newburyport.k12.ma.us address, and we can forward them on or collate them into an FAQ. And it seems as if that is it. Can we get a motion to adjourn this section of the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
And I believe we need a roll call vote, Mrs. Kennedy. And you're muted.
Okay, sorry. Mr. Callahan,
Yes.
Mr. Hawkeizer,
Yes.
Ms. Spalding,
Yes.
Mayor Holliday,
Yes.
Mr. Reardon,
Yes.
and Mr. Cole.
Yes.
And Mr. Menon also votes yes, even though he wasn't called.
Sorry, Mr. Menon.
That's
Mr.
okay.
Menon.
Yes.
Okay,
All right. And now we open the next meeting. Mayor?
Yes, I'd like to open the regular business meeting of the school committee for April 5th, 2021. Mrs. Kennedy, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Holliday,
Present.
Mr. Callahan,
Here?
Mr. Cole,
Here.
Mr. Hawkeizer,
Here.
Mr. Menon,
Here and yes, just in case.
Miss Spalding,
Here.
and Mr. Reardon.
Here.
All
Thank
right.
you. Should we move on to the consent agenda, Mr. Callahan?
I think we should. Mr. Cole, do we have any warrants?
Yes, we have 3 warrants. The first warrant, I move that the following named bills of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate $11,960.41 be approved and forwarded to the city auditor for payment. There were no conflicts.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Mrs. Kennedy, can you please do a roll call?
Okay, let me see. Mr. Reardon,
Here. Yes.
Mayor Holliday,
Yes.
Mr. Callahan,
Yes.
Mr. Hawkeizer,
Yes.
Mr. Menon,
Yes, and here.
Mr. Cole,
Yes.
and Miss Spalding.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay.
All right. The next warrant, I move that the following named bills and payrolls of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate $14,366.07 be approved for the city auditor to make payment and deduct the funds from the school's account. There are no conflicts.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Mrs. Kennedy, may you please do a roll call vote?
All righty. Mr. Callahan,
Yes.
Mr. Reardon,
Yes.
Mayor Holliday,
Yes.
Mr. Cole,
Yes.
Miss Spalding,
Yes.
Mr. Hawkeizer,
Yes.
and Mr. Menon.
Yes.
Number 3.
I move that the following named bills, the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate $337,657.15 be approved and forwarded to the city auditor for payment. There were no conflicts.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, could we please get a roll call vote, Mrs. Kennedy?
Mayor Holliday,
Yes.
Mr. Callahan,
Yes.
Mr. Cole,
Yes.
Mr. Hawkeizer,
Yes.
Mr. Menon,
Yes.
Miss Spalding,
Yes.
and Mr. Reardon.
Yes.
Excellent. I believe we have 2 sets of minutes, and we should do them separately, right? So we have the minutes from 3/9/2021. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Menon seconds, and we need a roll call vote.
I have a,
I'm sorry, discussion. Sorry about that, guys.
that's okay. I think on the top of that one, I'm sorry, I don't have it right in front of me, but I think it mentioned that Bruce Menon was the vice chair. I just think I think it's just a typo, but
No, he was the vice chair at one point.
I know, but not on March 9th.
Well, not technically, no.
So we move to approval with the amendment. Is that correct? Do we need to do the whole thing again?
No,
Okay, all right. All right, Ms. Kennedy, could you please do the roll call on that?
Yes. Mr. Menon,
Yes.
Mr. Reardon,
yes,
Ms. Spalding,
Yes.
Mr. Hawkeizer,
Yes.
Mayor Holliday,
Yes,
Mr. Cole,
Yes.
and Mr. Callahan.
Yes. All right, the next set of minutes are from March 15th. Do I hear a motion to approve those?
so moved.
second,
Second, is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mrs. Kennedy, yet again, could we get a roll call vote?
Mr. Callahan,
Yes.
Mayor Holliday,
Yes,
Mr. Reardon,
yes,
Ms. Spalding,
Yes.
Mr. Hawkeizer,
Yes.
Mr. Cole,
Yes.
Mr. Menon.
Yes.
Excellent. All right, next we have the superintendent with the capital improvement plan. Superintendent?
Great. I'll walk everyone through the capital improvement. You've probably seen a lot of these on the list from years past. And if, Mr. Callan, if Mr. Burkholm's out there, you could also bring him in, but it's not, I think
I do not see him in the list. No.
Perfect. I have Nancy there anyway. But a lot of this information, I'm just going to go through page by page. Some of it is going to fall under the SOI and the MSBA for the roof and science project. And then some of the other items we're going to be able to fund through various grants that we can utilize with COVID. But I'll go through this right now for everybody. So page 1 is the addition and renovation and roof replacement. Steve Burkholm and obviously the mayor's office will be submitting the same proposal or similar proposal that we submitted last year. They just opened up the bids again. And we're just going to continue to move down that path.
it's, can I just clarify, it's a statement of interest
Yep.
that we submitted last year.
Correct.
And they just dropped that, the statements of interest, and we have to update that every year until we're accepted. That's typically the procedure. For those of you who've been on the committee for a while, you remember that we did that for the middle school for, I don't know, 15 years or something before we finally got accepted. But so I'll work with the superintendent and with Steve Burkholm to get the, just to tweak if there's any updates to the SOI that we submitted last year, and that it will come back before the school committee as well as the city council for an affirmative vote before we resubmit it to the Mass School Building Authority.
Right. And that's a school committee and city council has to vote on that, correct? Yep, every year. All right, great. The next piece is the engineering services, and Steve Burkholm has had this in the capital plan. It's just really utilizing engineering service to assist us with to get professional opinions and in the sense of looking at all the various areas of all the different buildings. It's use this as to prevent damage down the road. So you spend a little bit upfront in preventative maintenance and assistance. So this has also been in the capital plan for the past couple of years. The bleacher seat replacement. So this is one that the school department is really going to take on, just because if you've been in the gym at the high school, those bleachers are very dangerous. And with some of the funding that we received, that we can move around a little bit, but we can utilize this 24,000. We've already allocated the repair work to be done. So that's why on the capital improvement plan, it has other, and then Nancy will put in our LEA budget for the schools. So we were planning on that for a couple of years in the school system. The exterior painting of the schools, this is still in. Once again, over a 5-year period to continue in the upgrades of the paint to maintain the wood, so we don't get back to where we were with a lot of the rot. The next item is the Toro Groundmaster. I feel like this is the Price is Right now. So this, the Toro Groundmaster, as you know, we have a new groundsman who is doing an amazing job. But this would allow him to cut the grounds in obviously a more effective way, which would have less manpower spending on one field. And it would allow our groundsmen to continue to do all of the other things on a daily basis. But this is, much needed equipment. And this is also, I think, I think this was proposed last year too, but it's still on our capital improvement. Our next one, Steve and maintenance crew have done a great job in the energy reduction projects. So they're utilizing some state funding and also some other funding to really start converting the remaining lighting in all the schools to LED. And this is also funded through the Green Community Grant and other utility rebates. So Steve's already started this process. I believe the first floor of the high school has been replaced, and the savings down the road with effective, as you all know, with green energy pays dividends down the road. So Steve's already started this project in our schools with the focus on the high school. The pickup truck has also been on the capital plan. We're taking on a little bit more of the snow removal within the schools, but also I think the pickup truck that we're utilizing is 2010. So, when you're pushing all the snow and all the wear and tear on the vehicle, it's on its last legs. So this has also been in our capital improvement plan for the schools for the past couple of years. This is a snow thrower. So we already have this tractor, and basically the snow thrower would allow us to move the snow. As you all know, like at the Bresnahan, for example, when we have a big snowstorm, it's all piled up in one area, and it's really hard to remove that. But this snow thrower would be able to utilize it and clear a lot areas of the, obviously the parking lots, but where the plows put all the snow, we could come with this attachment and really clear those areas. So you have the sidewalks and all of that. So this would be an additional aspect to the tractor that was purchased a few years ago. Next item is just control system upgrades. And I think Steve's already been working on this piece. This is for the HVAC systems, but with COVID this year, he's done a lot of work already upgrading our HVAC systems, the high school and the NOC in Mullen. The next piece is the NHS furniture replacement. So look down the bottom right where it says state and federal grant, and then other grants. So this is part of the COVID relief funding, and also furniture is part of the ESSER 2 to bring students back into. It fits in all the criteria. So we're utilizing a lot of the new furniture needs through that grant, especially as the students are coming back full in person. Because right now, if you all recall, the lunch tables, the circular tables, our lunchrooms have to be single desks facing forward, and we're gonna have to maintain that throughout the rest of the year. So we're purchasing other furniture for the classroom. So this is one piece that we're gonna utilize our state and the federal grants. The next, this has been on the project for a while. It's really the sidewalk repairs and repaving right out front of the NOC Mullen property. Where that sidewalk is, and I'm just thinking of this. I met with Tony in Department of Public Works to really help, with as we all know, we've received concerns with the amount of cars and traffic because we've really doubled our riders. But I was just thinking, just update the school committee that Tony and his crew are going to do painting out front of the Knock Mullen to make it really clear and to have people drop off and pull up. So that's not part of this project, but when we're out there, we were looking at that sidewalk, and that's something that is on the capital plan that we'd like to hopefully see if what we can do to fund that.
Are you going to mark off a spot for the skateboard ramps to go in front of your office window?
Yeah, the kids are right here right now. So yeah. Ian, just so you know, for the record, I was here on over the weekend, and one of the skateboarders ran out of water, and he's like, "Excuse me, can I get in the school to fill my water bottle?" And I gave him my water bottle.
Whoa!
Yeah, I felt bad for the kid. He was really working up a sweat. So, I'm bonding with our skateboard people out front. The carpet replacement, that's also been on here. So there's various carpets throughout the high school that need to be replaced. And they're obviously showing signs of a lot of wear and tear in those rooms that have carpet. So this is also another piece. The plaster repairs in the auditorium is caused by the leaky roof. And as the mayor said, this would obviously, we would hold off and not, you're not going to repair the walls, and then they're going to tear down and put in a new roof. So this is something that we could probably tweak as part of that statement of interest, is the building project. The tennis court renovation, we did receive funding from the CPA grant, and then others. That was our the tennis crew coming in with their proposal on renovation, those two courts. So we feel like this is on its way, or can get done. And once again, knock and furniture replacement. We can take this up through our state and federal grant, through the funding, through ESSER and COVID relief. The Knock Mullen Gym auditorium roof replacement, that's still, Steve's he said he was gonna get up there in the next few weeks to take a look at the roof. But that's also stays on the capital improvement. And then the part of we're looking at for the energy, and as you all know, if you go to a game in the corridor at the by the gym, the two vestibules, they open up. When you open up those doors, all that heat goes right out the door. And so this is a project that Steve has on here. We'll also take a look at state and federal grant funding for that, not the COVID. Steve has working with the energy conservation grants that he's looking at, but that would also be an area that we could save funding with our electrical and heat by just adding another doorway or vestibule, so in between those two doors. So that's the capital summary, capital improvement, where we are utilizing, as I said, some of those grants for the bleachers and the furniture within the schools, and there's some other line items that we have in there for further discussion.
All right, I see two hands up. We'll go alphabetical. Mr. Hawkeiser.
I got to be honest with you, it was quite a couple minutes ago. I don't really remember what I was going to ask. I know I was curious. I saw the snow blower. Are you looking at one of those for each building site, or just one that you're going to tow around the district somehow?
Yeah, that would be one. We have a tractor already. So this is an attachment to that tractor we purchased. So the attachment 17,000, but we would be able to take that tractor and utilize it at all the buildings. Like if you recall, when we were looking for the winter season 2, for the parking lot at the high school, for example, right in front of where the entrance was, there was a big mound of snow. So this equipment would be able to clear that, any type of mound of where snow is. This would be equipment that could clear that off. So you could clear the paths, especially when you have a tough winter where there's no place to move the snow. This would be utilized in all the schools.
I know what I was going to ask now. Actually, it was about the field cutter, the huge lawnmower. I don't know what the specific name for that thing is.
72-inch.
Yeah, the big one.
Yep.
Can you remind us of the status of like the shared field responsibility between us and the city parks? And looking at that thing reminds me back, like, you know, when the kids were playing youth soccer and people talking about showing up with their lawnmowers on a Saturday because we didn't know who was going to mow the fields or not. Like, are we still sharing responsibility for the fields behind the Knock and the Fuller, like with the city, or is that become school district?
There are some, we do share, I think, like Fuller Field, the city's taking over. We have all the athletic fields, a couple of the fields out off school grounds, like the softball fields. But we have a good working relationship with the city. And I'll tell you something, Mr. Hawkeyes, our grounds person that we hired, he just does a great job. He's basically got a degree, I think, in like botany. He was he was a groundsman for a golf course. He was working at Tufts University. So he's been instrumental with the facilities. And so we're looking at something like this because he could be able to cut faster, more accurately. And then, yeah. So
I'm all for it.
Yeah,
I'm all for it. I think it's great that we found someone good for the position. And I think what's great, we're trying to get them some equipment to make, you know, to make everything more functional for people. So I was just a clarifying question.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Reardon's hand is up.
Thanks. Sean, at the city council budget and finance the other night, you did mention that some of these hopefully and quite possibly will be funded by different sources. And I think you referenced that a little bit as you went through these tonight. Did you say that the bleachers is one of those that could possibly be funded by ESSER funds?
No, what we did was because the bleachers it's been on the radar, I think, for a couple of years now. So working with Steve, Nancy, and myself, we allocated some of the LEA funding to repair those bleachers. So we're starting those repairs this year.
Okay, because some of the furniture though is being used with ESSER money, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if bleachers maybe would have fallen underneath that if you were trying to be creative and you could say that you were, you know, trying to hold classes and spread out students, so those bleachers would need to be prepared. I was just checking on
because
that.
the bleachers are a safety issue, they can't go under ESSER, but the furniture can as a way to bring more children back.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thanks, Nancy. And I just had just a question about the truck. So the truck that we have, I understand, is 11 years old. Is it used throughout the year besides for plowing?
Yeah.
What is it used for, I guess?
It's used for all the different schools, like bringing like supplies. It's utilized for landscaping also, where they put all their equipment and stuff to bring from one school to the other school. So it's used on a daily basis throughout the school year.
Okay, that's good for me. Thank you.
Yep.
Miss Spalding.
Thank you. Sean, I had a question about the LED lights.
Yes.
Do you know if they're using the warm flicker free type of lighting? Because that will help with some students who have photosensitivities or people who suffer from migraines.
Right. So Steve Burkholm in Steve Burkholm fashion did all of the research before replacing those. So the lights that we're utilizing, the LED lights, are the top light within a school. So it wouldn't trigger people that have sensory or light issues. So I'm gonna say yes. The lights that we're replacing fit into that category.
That's great.
Yeah.
And my other question was, is it possible to replace the carpeting in the high school with linoleum flooring? Because it would be healthier and I imagine cheaper in the long run.
Yeah, I think Steve is looking at those options right now too. You know, if you recall, and I think it was room 118, we remodeled that whole room, but there was carpeting in there. But yeah, I think anytime you can go, you know, tile or anything other than a rug is beneficial. But sometimes for rugs in classrooms, it's also has to do with sound too, but I'm not sure what the reasoning was back then when they built the high school for the carpeting.
Thank you. I have one more question. How old are the solar panels on the roof of the Mullen?
I would have to phone a friend. That would have to be Nancy. Nancy, do you have an answer to that one?
Nancy doesn't, I'm sure Steve Cole does.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 2008.
2008.
Yeah.
You can take that to the bank.
Thank you.
All
Steve
right.
is our historian.
Any other questions for superintendent? No, I guess I have a question. This says possible vote. What is it we're voting on?
We're voting to approve the school capital improvement plan that has been submitted as part of the total 5-year capital plan to the city council. We should have actually voted before it was submitted to the city council, but they're not going to be taking it up. They have to vote by June 1st. So we realized this at our budget and finance, our FinCom meeting, that the capital plan hadn't come before the school committee. So we still have time in terms of the vote. And they did the school review last Thursday night. Obviously, school committee member, Mr. Reardon, was there. And we will be there, you know, once they are ready to vote on the capital plan. And we will be pulling out the items that will be for this fiscal year for capital expenses. But so there'll actually probably be another vote that we'll ask of the school committee when the school committee items are pulled out of the 5-year plan that will be funded for this coming fiscal year.
So do we push this out then and not have the vote?
No, we have to vote on the total plan that was submitted to the council, if you will.
Can we use your explanation as the motion, or do we need a
Motion to approve the 5-year capital improvement plan submitted by the schools.
Second.
Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, Mrs. Kennedy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Okay, could you wait 1 second?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to catch up here. Okay, let me see. All righty. Mr. Reardon,
Yes.
Ms. Spalding,
Yes.
Mr. Menon,
Yes.
Mr. Hawkeiser,
Yes.
Mr. Cole. Mr. Cole,
He's muted.
Yes.
Mr. Callahan,
Yes.
and the mayor, please.
Yes.
Excellent. Let's see. 2021-2022 school calendar draft. I had made a joke, or not quite a joke, to the superintendent that I'd like it to have be the quickest approved calendar in the history of the school committee. We seem to spend a lot of time every year going over early release days and when we're starting before Labor Day or after Labor Day. We kind of came to an agreement that if Labor Day fell, I believe after the 4th, we'd begin before. This year it falls on the 6th. So the first day of school is September 1st. The ER days are primarily, Fridays, which is awesome for the community. That's what they keep asking for. Or before a holiday vacation week. And I don't know, Superintendent, do you have anything you want to say about this, or?
I think it's a very similar very similar calendar that we did a lot of work on a couple of years ago that I think it was a good compromise for a lot of different stakeholders out there. And so we kind of are just following that same format.
Can I get a motion to?
So
approve the
moved to
calendar?
approve the calendar as proposed by the district.
Second,
Is there any discussion? Hearing none.
Just
Mrs.
ask one
Kennedy.
one
Oh,
second.
sorry, Mayor, go ahead.
Hold on a second. Can I ask one thing?
I believe the mayor had her hand up first, but then you.
I just wanted to ask about the, typically there was a professional development day in early November.
Correct.
Is that Tuesday, the second early released, Sean?
That's election day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you still have it. You have an early release on the election day in November. And what we did, that was very beneficial. So the teachers are back, and then we use that first PD day on the second.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Okay,
Yeah.
thank
And
you.
then the next one is January. It's the Friday, I think, before Martin.
Okay,
The 14th,
Correct.
thank you.
Welcome.
Dave?
At some point in the fall, early fall, can we have a conversation about the week? I don't know when it usually is, sometime in mid-January, falls around the end of the first semester at the high school, where we've been talking about whether or not we want to have essentially school closed down for midterms, or we want to have a regular week of school. I don't know if that's part of the calendar conversation, but something looking at the calendar makes me think about. So if we could have a conversation about that sometime early enough in the fall that it doesn't trip us up, that'd be great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sean Reardon, your hand's up?
I just had a quick question, and it's just a comment really. So that February early release day, is there a reason why we felt like we couldn't back it up to the vacation, or is it just, was that something we already had set up for something
We
on the
did
11th?
Yeah, we did a lot of work on that when we did all the data. That February vacation, that was a lot of absences.
Mm-hmm.
We were trying to, there are some vacations, but some others, we had it on the week before.
Right, that happens for winter break too.
Correct.
You say a large amount of absences.
What's that?
When you say a large amount of absences, what exactly are you?
So when we did our 2 years ago, when we had before the pandemic here, we did a lot of work on the absences, all in those days before the vacation. And that's why we ended up moving those early release away from that Friday for the February and December. But for the April vacation, it wasn't, that was our rationale the last time we did this.
All right, anybody else? Questions, comments? No? Mrs. Kennedy, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Mr. Cole,
Yes.
Mr. Hawkeizer,
Yes.
Mr. Reardon,
Yes.
Miss Spalding,
yes.
Mr. Menon,
Yes.
Mayor Holliday,
Yes,
and Mr. Callahan.
Yes. Okay, number 5, Mayor, this is going to be for you, the community dialogue update.
thank you. As I think you all know that we have been meeting since December with 24 members of an amazing group of individuals from across our community, representing just about every walk of life possible. We have transgender, we have students, we have gay, we have people of color, we have low income, representing nonprofits. I'm just so impressed with the group of people that have come together, including our superintendent, our marshal, who've been part of this process. The difficulty is when you're trying to build an alliance or a coalition and you have to do it all remotely. It's taking a lot longer than we had anticipated to really build the skills of this group. We started with identifying our mission statement and then have been doing a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, and threats. And we're finalizing that piece. We've also interjected into our twice a month meetings, work with Michael Eatman, who's been doing conversations with us around, sort of cultural competency, difficult conversations. And we also are just about to sign a contract with Essential Partners, who, as you know, did amazing work with our students around the Sal-Val situation, and also were facilitators of the community read on Just Mercy. So they are coming in to do 3 trainings with us to get us prepared to organize in June a series of community conversations that will be focused on the issues of racism in our community, as well as tackling the thin blue line flag and the incident that happened in 1941 at graduation at the Mullen School, making them sort of broader conversations with the community. And so that's what the plan is. So I know that I think all of us would have liked to have had these conversations sooner, but we're joining together with the Human Rights Commission, with our DEA Alliance, so that we'll have a really broad cross-section of people who are well-trained and being able to facilitate and have conversations with the public around some of these difficult issues. So that's where we are. We'll be able to give you specific dates soon regarding the community conversations that we anticipate holding in June on these issues.
Great, thanks, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Sean Reardon's hand is up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to the mayor for especially for getting those other organizations in Newburyport involved. I think that's great that the Human Rights Alliance is going to be a part of it, and then the DEI coalition. So I'm just glad everyone's going to be part of it, and I'm looking forward to locking down a date. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
Does anybody else have any comments for the mayor?
Is there something that happened that I missed that brought up specifically the thin blue line flag? Was there like an incident or something?
No, I wouldn't say it's an incident, David, but there, as so many symbols in this community or in our country, some have been co-opted and used for reasons that they weren't originally designed for. And so as a result, the thin blue line was originally designed as representation of our police and the work that they do. But since that has been co-opted by white supremacist groups, so that there are some concerns about why the police department is flying the thin blue line flag outside of their station. We've received a letter with a lot of community members signing on saying we want to have a conversation about this. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to have an open dialogue about what it means to the police, what people see it as the community, and what should our response be.
Thank you, that makes sense.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Does anybody else have anything to say? Bruce, are you raising your hand or just no?
I wasn't aware of it. Did I raise my
You just
hand?
kind of went like this. I don't know if it was a racing.
I just wanted to add one other thing.
Who's waving?
That given in light of what's happened in Duxbury, which is, I think, just was absolutely astounding in terms of their football team and the plays that they started identifying. And, that's really spread across, communities. And people from our local temple have reached out to me, and they're pretty concerned. And they know that we've had incidents in our community too, which we've all talked about. And so they're doing a to community forums, and we're going to give those to the DEA Alliance tomorrow on Wednesday night, and also to the Human Rights Committee. But I would look for those in your mailbox. I'm going to send those to you in terms of these anti-Semitic dialogue that the ADL and groups are putting together for us to have conversations. There's been some astronomical increase of something like 350% increase in anti-Semitic incidents across our country in the last 4 years. And we all know that that's also increasing for, unfortunately, Asian population. So I think anything we can do as a community to come together to address groups that live in our community who will have concerns or issues regarding the way these situations are emerging, with that, we should invite them to be part of that. So I will send out that information to you on what the ADL is sponsoring.
Great, thank you. That actually reminds me of something. An email came to us from a Joe Vecchione. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. And I did reach out to him. I called, but I suspect it was a landline. It didn't go to a voicemail. So Superintendent, were you copied on that about the Day of Holocaust Remembrance film screening on Wednesday?
I'm not sure if I was.
Okay, I'm going to forward this over to you.
Yeah.
And if we can see if we can promote this, I suspect high school age, maybe middle school, though I'm not really quite familiar with it. I don't know if anybody else is familiar with this film. But I'll send this over to you. I had forgotten that, and I tried to call him and nobody answered. So
Was it Terrazin?
Yes.
Okay, so this is Anna Schmolowitz's work that she's been doing, started, decades ago, and won all kinds of awards. And Bruce, weren't you even in this at one point?
My daughter was in this, but I serve on the board of directors for the Terrorism Project, so I can speak to this a little bit if you want.
Sure.
Please.
Yeah, she's been performing this. This play has been performed for close to 40 years now, and every couple of years she would bring together a local group that would perform the play. It's mostly done. It's all nonprofit. It's mostly done as a beginning of dialogue. So the play is about the Theresienstadt concentration camp was a concentration camp for kids, and it was a camp that. It was a camp for kids, and the play is really a heartbreaking play. And what happens is they perform the play at schools. I've been there when they did it at Amesbury. They've done it at our school, done it at the Knox Middle School a number of times. And then they have a dialogue with the audience, a talk back to go back and forth about it. With sort of the increase in what's been going on in terms of diversity and anti-Semitic incidents and anti-Asian incidents, the play has become really very, very meaningful and very, very current. They've actually performed the play at Auschwitz. They did that a couple of years ago. A group of people in the latest iteration of the play raised funds on their own and filmed the play. It's the first time it's ever been filmed. And it's really been it's quite a beautiful production. There is a curriculum that goes along with it, and the foundation is looking to move it out to school districts. Ideally, they would like to be able to provide each school district with a copy of the film so that they can use it along with the curriculum as a beginning of dialogue. So I think this is kind of like an opportunity for some members of the district to take a look at this movie. If you haven't already seen the play, it's a remarkable, powerful play. And so I think this is an opportunity, if we've got an invitation, to take a look at this movie to see how we can then bring it into the district if it's something that we want to do.
It's awesome.
Great, thanks, Bruce.
Sean, along that topic, I know last year at the middle school where the Holocaust is usually taught, the unit was cut short because after we closed the schools, they didn't want to teach it remotely. Do you know if that was brought back this year during the hybrid, or was this year, or was it also not done this year?
No, I believe it's there's two units that actually Michael Eatman's been working with our teachers, the teacher leaders and administration. Both units one was the Holocaust unit and the other one's our slavery unit. So I believe I can get you the next school committee.
Yes, seventh grade did it this year. My daughter had that unit.
Yeah,
Okay,
They
great.
just finished. I want to say they finished about a week or so ago.
yeah.
All right. I think we're moving on to the superintendent's report, which apparently will be a hiring update.
Yeah,
Mr. Gallagher.
just a couple just pieces here on the hiring update. So we had for the assistant superintendent position, we had 66 applicants. We interviewed 9. I had a committee made up of teachers, administrators, school personnel. That 9 was then moved to 3 finalists. And then we had another committee made up of other stakeholders within the community. So we interviewed those 3. Right now we're checking on references, and we should have someone in place hopefully by the end of this week, or someone that we can make a offer to at the end of this week. We opened up our, we have another round of business manager. We have 3 new candidates that are applied for business manager. We're starting those interviews tomorrow. And we're hoping to solidify that position too within the next week or so. With the anticipation at our next school committee meeting, hopefully we can introduce a new assistant superintendent and also introduce a new business manager to the committee. I really want to, the other piece I'd just shift gears is really, I want to recognize, once again, we've been saying it all year, but our nursing staff and administrative assistants that have been helping out, with the surveillance testing and just for the community. So we've been, the tests are free, but every school system has to develop your own testing protocols and procedures. So some districts, because they couldn't put that together, they're just doing voluntary, like the end of the week, if you want to come and get tested, feel free. So in some other districts, the testing is maybe a handful of kids, a handful of teachers. But Kathy Riccio and our nursing team developed a truly comprehensive surveillance testing for our district. And last week they tested over 1,000 students in 1 week, and they, all came back negative. And we're testing 1,000 students again this week, along with staff members. The vaccination update at this time, all of the faculty, support staff, whoever wanted the vaccination, everyone I believe has received the first shot. We had some people this weekend get their second shot, but that's, we're just so thankful for that. I mean, we had our plans with Cataldo, those fell through. Mayor Holiday and the regional mayors, along with the Board of Health, set up that Amesbury site. And that's just been awesome. So I would imagine within the next 3 weeks or so, that all of the faculty, support staff, custodians, everyone in the school system that wanted the vaccination will have had their second shot and be fully vaccinated. Then we're going to take that surveillance testing and then just continue with that for the students for the rest of the year. So that's also been, I can't thank the people enough and our people for designing that and carrying that through. So it's just just shows you another area where our faculty and support staff and our community goes above and beyond. And I think that surveillance testing is, it's going to be very helpful for us to make informed decisions throughout the rest of the school year. So those are my 2 little updates for everybody.
Bruce is waving. You're muted.
Just saying hello to a little person that came into the room. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. Does anybody have any questions for the superintendent, Mayor Holiday?
Sean, could you just quickly give us an update on how things are going with the return of more students in-person learning?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. So we, as you all know, we began a phased-in process that we started on March 22nd, 4 days a week for the Bresnahan students. And that Wednesday we took off remote was instrumental because once all the students are in, it gave us time in between to make the changes, tweaks to lunch, to snack, and all of that. So that went extremely well. And then the 29th, we brought the Mullen students all back last week, and we did the same process 4 days a week. This week for grades K to 1 is going to be 5 days with the modified early release on Wednesday. So K to grade 5 will be back in full, both schools, Mullen and Bresnahan. We'll take the same approach on April 12th for the middle school. They'll be back full in person for the 4 days. That Wednesday we'll utilize if we have to make any changes to the lunch or snacks or recess. And then on the 26th, the high school students will be back full in person. So we're just really proud, I think proud of the work that went into that. Very appreciative of the association in working with us. You know, as we said at the education committee, it was one of the few districts that we came together where we didn't need, you know, memorandum of understanding. We didn't have to negotiate or any of that, because I really believe from day one, our faculty and administrators, we wanted to get kids back. The thing we've been saying is just want to make sure we do it in the safest way possible. So things are looking very, you know, it's going very well. The one area, as the school committee may know, has been the arrival and dismissal. It's more dismissal than the arrival. So as we all know, with the pandemic, many families are not choosing to have their students ride the bus. So we've doubled the car riders. So working with the city and the administration at the Bresnahan, we're working on plans to try to help alleviate the congestion with dismissal, because many parents are getting there early and parking their cars waiting for the dismissal time. So that's one area that we really need to take a look at. But the safety protocols, the functioning of the students and the staff within the school buildings is going extremely well.
Right. Thanks, Sean. Does anybody else have any other questions, or are we getting a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, Bruce seconds.
Second.
Mr. Kennedy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Yes, I can. Let's see.
This is the school committee.
Mayor Holliday,
Yes.
Mr. Callahan,
Yes.
Mr. Cole,
Yes.
Mr. Hawkeizer,
Yes.
Mr. Menon,
Yes, here and gone.
Miss Spalding,
Yes.
and Mr. Reardon.
Yes.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much. Have a
Thank
good
you
night.
all very much. Have a
See you
good
later.
night.
Good night,
Good night.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.